Here's my story. I'm going to share a little picture that I have from 1975. Um, and This is me and Mohammed in 1975. And what we used to do is I found out that at the Saroche canteen that you could buy jam cookies, which was a real treat. And Erica told me that Mohammed loved jam cookies. So when I used to travel to Mehrabad, I was staying at Vilusville at the time, I would always bring him jam cookies. And so after I gave him a cookie, I asked him if he would take a photograph with me, and this is that photograph. So I felt very privileged to be sitting next to a six-plane saint, but I hang this picture in my bedroom and I look at it every evening and I'm thinking, I wonder what he was thinking about me. So that's my story.
Wow, he looks so happy with you. Wow.
And you look so young.
Yeah, very young. I think that was
You look young
1975.
today too.
Thank you. All right, so if you wish to share, are we following the same procedure, Angela, to have people digitally raise their hand or just unmute themselves and start talking? I think it might get confusing.
If we can use the digital hand raising, it's a little easier, but if you can't figure that out, feel free to butt in. We're not a very large group, so is there somebody else who'd like to share?
Tina, go ahead, Tina.
I did write a song about Mohammed, and I didn't have that much contact with him, but he was always around when I'd go to Mehrabad, and the Padre was taking care of him, and he would always say that he was looking for dish. And once I gave him some soap and he said, "The mad one has given me soap." So those are my few memories of him. So I'm going to sing this song, which I wrote about him, to the tune of How Do You Solve a Problem Like Maria? The Sound of Music. And Angela's going to come in at a certain point too. He looks for dish for hours on end and stacks up bars of soap. He takes 2 hours to brush his teeth. His helpers just can't cope. But if they try to hurry him, and to mope, Mohammed's not an want to take a bath or put on any clothes. If someone tries to force him, he will punch them in the nose. He stutters and he stammers and complains about his woes. Mohammed's not an asset to the ashram.
I'd like to say something in his defense. Mohammed makes me laugh.
How do you solve a problem like Mohammed? Intoxicated by beloved God. How do you tame a creature like Mohammed? He's a holy man. He's a nutcase. He's just odd. He eats 12 plates of vegetables for dinner. He says it's all a part of Dada's plan. He's Baba's favorite must. It's fifth plain or bust. Who can satisfy all his demands? Oh, how do you solve a problem like Mohammed? Just leave him in the hands of the God-man.
What a team. You guys should make a CD. All right, I see Mikkel.
Actually, we did make a CD.
Oh,
Beautiful. Thank you.
Well, I don't have much to, it's like points here and there. It's not like a big story. The first time I came to Marabat, 1988, I was, I went to the office and I registered there, and I was I was crying. I didn't know anything. I didn't know much about Marabat. I didn't know much about the Mandiri or anything, and certainly not about Mohammed the Mast. And while I came back to Marabat, there was no place in the PC. So someone took me to the Dharamshala, which is my lab, which I didn't know it was my lab, but it is. So we were passing, Heather took me, so we were passing by Muhammad. And I felt this great joy coming out of him. And I just, like a magnet, I went right to him. And Heather told me, no, you're not, women are not supposed to come close to Muhammad. So I stopped in my tracks, but I remember this wave of joy that came from him, and that made me also want to just go towards him and hug him or something. That was the first meeting. Then when I used to, when I did not complete my my arati in the samadhi, sometimes I used to do the arati in Mandali Hall in Marabat, in Lower Marabat. So one day I went into the hall, and it's usually empty completely, very quiet, and there's Baba's chair there, and it's very private and intimate. So I went in, and I was doing the arati. And then as I finished the arati, I realized that Muhammad the Mast was right in the back of the hall, very quietly sitting there and listening. Of course, since Heather told me never to approach him, I never did. I never went up to him, and that is the second thing. And another thing, and I used to love going by his porch. And another thing was Sheila Kanchuri, Baudi's daughter. She had wonderful contact with Muhammad, because when the family came, they first lived in the family quarters in the village, in Arangon village, and there were not many people there in Marabat at that time at all. And Sheila had great contact with Muhammad the Mast and also with Don King. Very, very special stories with both of them. So one I do remember very strongly is that he was at that time very Jalali. And then Baba sort of said that he kicked him from the threshold of the third and fourth. He did not go into the fourth, but from the threshold, he kicked him right over, so he would skip the fourth plane and go straight into the fifth plane. So, but at that time, and then he became calmer, but at that time he was very Jalali. But she had a very strong relationship with him, and he liked her very much. So when he would see her pass by, he would call her. And she knew that he was very high soul, and that she should listen to whatever he does and whatever he says. So one time he called her, and he told her to stand. And so she was standing and standing and standing and standing and standing, and she didn't dare move until he released her. And one time, because she was living in the village, not in Marabat, so one time he told her that he wanted her shoes. So she gave him, or sandals, I don't know what it was. So she left them there, and she walked barefoot back to the Rangaon. I used to love Muhammad the Mast. And another thing that I remember about him was that I felt so sorry for him, because a person who is living on the fifth plane has a work that we cannot imagine. We cannot even understand what kind of spiritual work they're doing. Especially he was probably doing so much work for Baba, and we don't even know anything that what Baba is doing. But I remember, so you can imagine a person like that has no night and no day, and where his mind is and where his life is not what we see from the outside. And I remember that in Amartiti time, people used to just go by if he was not on the terrace. They used to go by and peek into his window, so he had no privacy, no time for himself. And with all this work that he was probably doing, he was an amazing soul that we can't understand even the beginning and the end of what they are and what they're doing. Thank you, Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. Thank you, Mikhail.
Nicole, can you ask quickly again, who was the woman from the village? I didn't get that.
That was
Who had to
Sheila
stand?
Kalchuri, the daughter of
Oh,
Gaudi
thank
when
you.
she was a young girl, because at first when they were very young they were living in the village, but then when they needed better education, then Baba moved them to Kushal quarters, to Meir Nazar in the city, in Ahmednagar city. So at that time she was very, very little, and she had all these different experiences with the few mandali that were there, and the padri and Muhammad and all those. It was a very special childhood.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you.
All right, Deanna.
Okay, Jai Baba. So when I think of Mohammed, I remember seeing him sitting on his bed in his room in Lower Mehrabad, just sitting there, doing whatever he did, sitting on his bed. I would think about the fact that he collected soap, and I believe that people used to bring him pear soap, which he liked very much. But my experience with him occurred in the early 90s, and Bauchi took a group of people one day to visit with Mohammed. And each person was to, and I think that Bao kind of orchestrated this event where this group of us, maybe 8 or 10 of us, were in a room with Bao and Mohammed sitting on his bed. And each person was to approach Mohammed. Mohammed would take each person's hand, and I think that Bao was asking or telling Mohammed what he wanted to have Mohammed say to us, and Mohammed, as I remember, was giving blessings to each person. And what I remember most from that is that when he held my hand, or I held his, I don't remember which, his hands were so hot, physically hot. Most of us have warm hands or cool hands, depending. His hands were so hot, and it just made me wonder about his body and how his body operated with those very hot hands, whether his whole body was hot. And I'd be curious to know if anyone else ever had some experience like that or response to that question. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. Thank you, Deanna. You know, I'm not being strict about muting everybody when somebody's ready to share, but I will if there begins to be a lot of background noise. So, but next up is Betty. Go ahead.
Okay, Jai Baba. I've told this story. I think I told it in sharing, so forgive me. It's a repeat. It's my one experience directly. I mean, I too. Are you hearing interference from I have my phone on. No, am I good?
Yes, we do hear interference.
Yes.
Okay, let me go. I'll go turn that off, and if you want, maybe Farisa, you could go, and I'll. Okay.
Okay, let's do that. Go ahead. Yes, Betty.
Hey, Baba, everyone. I actually have two. I was so lucky to go when I did and see all the amazingly otherworldly people that were around Meher Baba that were still left over for me to have the good fortune of meeting and seeing. And Muhammad Damas was one of them. So I'm in Mehrabad. I'm fairly new to Baba, and they tell me about him. So I go over and sit near him, not real close, but in, at a fair distance where he could see me, I could see him. And I sat there for quite a long time, even though they had told me that they're not so sure he doesn't react so well to women, but there are exceptions, something like that. So I was kind of taking a chance and saying, well, let's see if what happens. If he shoos me away, then so be it. At least I got to be in his orbit. So I sat there, and he let me sit there for 45 minutes, I would say. And then it was time, the bus, ding ding, time to go. And I left and started going toward the bus. And man, oh man, that's when I felt what he had to give me. And literally, I wasn't walking, I was floating, and I just floated into the bus, and I sat there, and I was just flooded with what he must be a reservoir of, which bliss, really. It was bliss. So that's my one experience with him. And the second one has to do with this. Again, may have been that same trip. I was walking around Mehrabad and went to the store where you buy Baba knickknacks, at the Meher, what is it called? Darbar. Beautiful place. So I picked out this hat, and I was wearing it, all proud to be wearing a Meher Baba hat, and I think it says Mehrabad. Prancing around, and I think it was Amartithi time. I might have even picked it up at one of the stalls. So this Irani guy came, one of the Baba lovers from Shiraz, and he says, "Give me that hat." I'm like, okay, well, I like it, but okay. Since you want it, here it goes. So my giving wasn't wholehearted, I have to admit. But I still let him have it. So later on in the day, or could have been the next day, I run into him and I'm like, "Where's the hat? Well, how come you're not wearing it? You took it from me. You should be wearing it, or I'll be wearing it. Give it back." He said, "Oh, I lost it." I'm like, "Oh, great. So you take it from me and you lose it. Thanks a lot." But I didn't say anything to him, so I'm just okay, whatever. It's not an expensive hat. I can get another one. That afternoon, again, we had another opportunity to go around Mohammed the Mast, or like I said, it could have been the next day. So I was with somebody, I can't remember who, probably Eriko or somebody who's very close to Mohammed. And I went up, and because I had a positive experience, I said, "You know what? I'd really like to see his room. Can I see his room?" And they're like, "Are you nuts?" I'm like, "I'd like to see where he hangs out. So they said, okay, whoever I was with, they said, "Okay, we'll just go stand at his door and see if it's okay. So I go at his door and pranam to him. He's sitting on his bed cot, and he's just looking at me. And I started just taking in the room, where he is, and it's a very simple room. And as my gaze is turning around the room, there's his windowsill, and there's my hat at the windowsill. And I'm like my heart just went kaboom, fell in my, it was just like, oh my God, that's my hat. So I didn't know what to do. Here I am with a fifth plane, got, like this amazing person, and I'm longing to have this hat back. What to do? What am I gonna do? So I look at Mohammed and I say inwardly, "Mohammed, is it okay for me to have this hat back?" And he looks at me, and he looks at the hat, and he looks at me. So I get the sense that it's okay. So I go and take the hat, and I bow to him, and I leave. I have this hat.
Wow, that's a great story.
Jai Baba. Thank you for letting me share this. I have never shared it with anyone.
Well, thank you.
Jai Baba.
All right, Betty, are you okay now?
I in 1987. That was my big trip to India, and I was there with my family and David, my husband, and I were having all kinds of troubles, and Bauji was with us and sort of helping us through it all. And one day, Bauji had this idea to take me and Chrissy Pearson and Betsy Tall down to have a visit with Mohammed at the Dharmashala where he was staying. And so we went with Bauji, of course. So we go into the room, and Bauji had us kind of all standing in a line. We didn't shake hands, we didn't touch him. He was just, Mohammed was just there, kind of sitting. He seemed to be in a bit of a reverie. And and Bauji, my impression was that Bauji was pestering him. Like he wanted Mohammed to say something about each one of us. And my response was, "Oh, Bauji, just leave him alone." But Bauji did get him to say, and I've told this story before. He said to Christy, so Bauji turns to Christy. So and Mohammed says, "Success," and he turned to Betsy, um, who was Betsy at that time had. I'll just digress a little bit. She had somehow gotten herself engaged to a young Indian boy, which was just a huge mistake, and she was regretting it terribly. And Bauji was intervening in this situation, helping her to get out of it. And anyway, Bauji asked about Betsy, and he said, and again, he said, "Success." And then he turned to me and said, "So, what indicated what's up?" And Mohammed said, "She'll be all right." And I was very relieved at that time to hear that, because I wasn't feeling like I was going to be all right at all. And so that was my interaction with Mohammed. I too was cautioned by Heather to stay away, and so I didn't. I would go by and maybe hear him sometimes yelling, or sometimes in that little room in the Dharmashala. But yeah, that's my story. All right, Jai Baba.
Thank you. Great job, Betty. Well, Jack is up next, but I wanted to reach out to Jimmy Kahn in case you might have some stories to share. Maybe you'll think about that. So go ahead, Jack.
Well, journey back to Mirabad in second week of November, 1972, and I was staying at Vila's Villa, and getting to Mirabad required one or two things. Either you walked a mile to get a bus, and do all that, switch one to another bus, or you rented a car. Or you found somebody to take you there who was staying with. And that so happened, I was able to hitch a ride. I don't remember who. And this was a day of two things, two amazing alternative realities hit me. The first was going up to the Samadhi for the first time. I had been in India about a week by that time. Spent half of it in Bombay before I ventured out to Mirabad. And I had the experience of putting my foot on the threshold, and my whole body just got turned inside out, and my memory of just sobbing voluminously, incredible. And I don't know how long it lasted, but when I stepped back, I went over to sit down, and there was a person sitting a foot or two away from me, and I apologized for my outburst. And she said, "What are you talking about?" Nobody had seen it, and it's one of those times when Baba just stops time, as far as I'm concerned. So after I recovered, I wandered down to I wanted to see Padre, and at that time, only males could stay at Mirabai, and you were allowed 3 nights and 4 days. There was no food available. You went out and ate or bought your own water or stuff like that, and you slept in double beds. They were single beds. No, they were double. What do you call it? I forget the word.
Double bunks.
Yeah, right. There were three or four of them in this room somewhere in Mandalay Hall or across the way. I don't know. My memories of stuff at that time are just gone. And so I went in to see Padre for the first time, and he was his usual self, as most people know him, in a white long sleeve shirt rolled up with the cuffs rolled up, and smoking a cigarette, wearing glasses, and looking out the window in his little homeopathic room, which incidentally in the archives, Bobby Street will take you through the whole Mundley Hall Padre story. And so we talked, and to me, he was not, the feeling I got from him again was this is a guy that I kind of know, and we had a very nice talk. I was smoking at the time too. And so after speaking with Padre for maybe 15, 20 minutes, half hour, I don't know, I said, "I'm going to go and say hello to Mohammed." So I got up, and of course intending to go back to see Padre after this. So I didn't say much. I just got up and walked out the door. And as I was walking out, Padre just turned his head sideways and loudly said, "You better watch out for that guy." And I turned around and looked at him. I said, "I'll be okay. Don't worry about it." So I walked into Mandalay Hall for the very first time, and it was particularly vacant, except for Sidhu was sound asleep. Um, he slept over by towards the, I guess, be the northwest corner, and Mohammed was sitting in the middle, a little bit to the left of center, on that dais, and on the left-hand side along the wall were again, my memory fades me when you call these things. Long tables with seating chairs. So I walked over to that corner, and as close as I could get to the dais, I got up on the table and sat on the top of the table and put my feet on the chair, so I was at kind of level with him. And I, like first they said, you don't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. I just kind of sat there and kind of looked at him, and he was busy picking his nose and scratching himself and doing all this kind of stuff. But he was moving slowly over. I saw him shift a few times, and I had brought some candy with me. It was a package of lifesavers, which most people know what they are. They're a little round package of candy of different flavors, and you bought them at the time for about 10 cents. And as I was thinking there, I felt I'll give him one. So I took out the lifesavers, and I started to open the top, and on the top was the red cherry. And as I was doing that, the next thing I know, they disappeared. Just right out of my hands, gone. And I looked over, and Mohammed was finishing what I started. He opened up the lifesavers and took off the top one, which is cherry, and he took it out and reached over and handed me it. So I took it and swallowed it. I didn't swallow it, I put it in my mouth. And next thing I know, he took the whole roll, didn't do any more ripping or he just put it in his mouth and swallowed it. And I said, whoa. So we just sat there, and I finished sucking on the cherry lifesaver, and this was gone. And he didn't say anything to me, and whatever. Padre had come in, Sidhu had started to sing, and all this was going on all at once. So when things quieted down, I just got up and didn't even go back to Padre's room. I just kind of left there, because I was venturing around in a totally alternative reality. Now that's 72. So fast forward 20 years to 92, and I read this poem this morning, if you don't mind me repeating it again, because it's his birthday. This ode to Muhammad.
It was the day he died, Jim.
Huh?
It was the MOTP day.
Yeah, well, I didn't know that. I know it was 92. But I wrote this in 92. He died 10 years later, 11 years later. Okay. All right, here we go. Ode to Muhammad the Must. See him in the forest. See him in the temple. See him in the mountain cave, or sitting on the edge of any city curve. He may be naked or dressed in tattered clothes, even covered with 10,000 flies, or wrapped in iron bracelet rings. He may be laughing or brooding, or calm as the Pacific Sea, or with a countenance of fire and brimstone that says, do not disturb. But what you do not see, perhaps you never will, is the song of love his being and his heart constantly sings. Impervious to the ills that befall all of humankind, he ages with that sweetness imbued with love that is beyond compare. For neither snow nor rain, swirling dust or dripping sweat, these mundane causes and their karmic effect make no dent nor pay him any mind. For grace has showered him in a bath of luminous luster, and his eyes belie the vision you may witness in his apparent vacant stare. His status is unique, for he is one of a kind. He neither drinks nor eats, sleeps nor works. For to this illusion of Maya, his senses are totally blind. What is he? What does he do, this lump of mortal flesh? Sitting on the ground, picking at his nose, or bent over digging dish. He may be smiling, he may be muttering through incredibly crooked teeth. He may be stooping or even squatting, seemingly joyful as to what he's found. He may be communicating with you in his very unfashionable way. Best be careful not to get too close, for the master has him on a very, very tight leash. For he is one of the beloved's beloved, sharing that love we cannot even conceive. He has the sight that has nowhere or no when, as he rides the plains of consciousness that are truly in bounds. Beloved is this giant between the fifth and the sixth world's mentation on the spiritual ladder stair, whose stature is unparalleled among humanity's billions swarm. For he is imbued with treasures priceless and beyond imagination's ken, this commander of the world's mental energy and the emotional world as well. He has that which we continually seek, divine love, to keep him warm. So the next time that you see him, in your dream stare or in the flesh, don't bother him, just salute him, for he lives beyond the norm. And though you may stand or sit and look with awe and wonder, or blow him a loving buss, be happy in his energy and not fail to remember that at one time or another, he was just like one of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. That was beautiful.
Sure.
That was very nice. Thank you, Jai Baba.
Jimmy, Khan, you feel like sharing something? I'll need to unmute yourself.
Yeah, Joe.
Oh, great.
I've been visiting Mehrabad since 1969, and the first day that I stepped into Mehrabad soil was 1st February 1969, which is one day after Baba dropped his body. So in those days, in the early days, there was nothing like PC. PC was not even on drawing board. It came on the drawing board maybe after a decade or whatever. So we would always stay in those small cottages. Even Dharamshala was not open. Dharamshala was open much later after cleaning Dharamshala, etc. So we would cross his room a number of times, of course, because that's how you go up and down. And I was scared by many people that, Jimmy, you be careful. If you go close to him, he'll ask for your watch, he'll ask for your pant, he'll make you naked. So I was a young man and I was very scared that somebody asked for my pant, what will I do? And all those, nonsense things. So I would walk half a mile away from his room and pass by. But I do remember, I think a couple of times, I did go into his room and we all knew him. He was half bent, 90 degrees or maybe more than 90 degrees. And his finger was always on the floor, on the ground. And he would mutter things, but I wouldn't know whether he was talking to me or he was just muttering to himself as he normally would. But I was very scared in short. So I kind of stayed as far as I possibly could. So honestly, I don't really have some stories to tell. But the fact remains that I saw him a number of times. But always scared. Sorry, this is all.
No, that's plenty. That's a wonderful story. All right, I see no hands raised, so if you feel like sharing something, you can just unmute yourself. If you don't know how to digitally raise your hand, you can do that.
I don't have much of a story myself, but the first time I went to Mehrabad was, I think it was 98 or 99. I am always a little bit fuzzy, the exact year, but Mohammed was still around, and like others have said, I was warned to stay away and I was a little afraid. So, I'd visit Rahuri to just sort of spend a little time in that area, but like be a little bit away from Muhammad and just sort of peek and see. So I never really spent time with Muhammad himself, but when we had the tour of Lower Meribad, Jal Dastur was showing us Lower Meribad and his tomb. You know, this was, I guess, this was actually before Muhammad had even passed. They had dug a hole for his grave, and it was curved because Muhammad was so crooked. So they were going to put him in sideways on a curve, and they thought it was actually, he told this in a very humorous way. And years before Muhammad had actually literally dropped his body, they just kept having these little scares like, oh, is he going to die? And they were preparing, and then he didn't die, and then he was fine. And it took years before they actually interred him. But I just found it quite amusing because the way the story was told was just so lighthearted, like it's no big deal, you know. just make it curved, he'll fit, you know. Jai Baba.
Okay, Bob. Oh, Mikal, go ahead.
Well, I just remember his presence, which was very, very strong, on the terrace, sitting on the terrace. And when I was in the PC, and I used to have this inner connection with him, but I used to pass by. I used to pass by, show myself, and then go somewhere else, and then come again, and another day also pass by. But there's all these stories that I read about him, and one of the stories was that he asked Baba for a wife, and Baba promised that he will give him a wife, and so he was pestering Baba. Where's my wife? Where's my wife? Where's my wife? So Baba asked a very, very old lady to come, and I think she was also, she put something on her eye, or she made herself sick in some way, and she was holding a baby, and she came towards him, and she said, and Baba said, here's your wife. And she said, and he saw that she was very old. So he wasn't so excited about it. So, and she said that she needs to either take care of the baby is sick, or she is sick and she has to go. And he says, go, that's okay, go. so so it's how, and then it was Baba made his promise good, so it was finished, the story, where's my wife, where's my wife.
Everybody's being shy today. They don't want to share a story.
Does anyone have any stories of Erico's experiences with Muhammad? I know he was a caretaker for a long time. Jack, maybe you have some tidbits?
Oh, problem is that Erico, as you know, got murdered in 2008. I just made the funeral in August, not August, in September, and when they buried him, cremated him rather. I never got that much time with Erico. He's always busy. But the person who has a lot of stories is Joe Mednick's son, Gabe Mednick. He's the one that's Erico trained to take over, because Erico stopped doing that. No, I wanted to mention on the gravestone in 2009, 8 or 9. I was given the opportunity of painting all the tombs of the men, and Mohammed's tomb and Gustaji's tomb were different. They were all all the rest of the men mandali were flat. These two were upright, about 3 feet tall, 2.5, 3 feet tall, and they were very, very difficult to clean off and repaint. Why, I don't know. Maybe the story that they were so small there was no need to dig a big hole, so they just dug a little hole and put the body in there and put the stone over it. That's all I know. I never asked as to why these two were different, but thinking back, both Kasaji and Muhammad body had really small. I mean, they so however that works out. Thanks for the shot.
Jay
So
Baba,
I was
I
gonna
have
share
a story.
screen of
Sure.
a picture of it. I
Yeah.
just have to get to the right spot.
Um, you want me to start, or you want to show the?
This is just the grave. Are you seeing it? I
Yeah.
can't tell because I've got two monitors.
Yeah, so they put those two
We see it.
structures on,
Okay.
but the Mohammed the Mast is down the front, so you can imagine how difficult it would be to clean that and then paint it. And anyway, Nadia and Joseph Elia took over another painting of it. I think 3 years ago, 4 years ago. Yeah.
Would people be interested in seeing the video that just got posted? I don't know how long it is, but that might be something. Video of Erica with Mohammed.
There you go.
I think it said it's over an hour.
Oh, really?
And
And I
then
just
Rosalie.
Double check.
I wanted to share something.
Yeah, Rosalie, go ahead.
yeah.
Well, once again, I was with a group with. Wait a minute. I was with a group with Minu Barucha. Minu Barucha was a pretty fascinating Baba lover. He had been a chauffeur for Upasni Maharaj, and then he had come to Baba. And he took a group of us to see Mohammed. And for some reason or no reason, Mohammed talked to him in, I guess, Marathi or Hindi. And he says to me, he says, Mohammed says you are caught in his net, and you are to stay with him until he says Baba's name. And personally, I was afraid of being alone with a Mast. But anyway, it was daylight, and everyone left. And then he was sitting on his bed in the huge Mandali hall, and I was sitting far on a bench, and I started singing to him. I sang every song I could think of, childhood songs, everything. And it was quite beautiful because it was like he was very quiet, and it felt like I was singing to nature, like singing to trees and, or singing to a child that wants to hear your songs, wants very much to hear your songs. And then it was getting dark. And I thought, well, it must be Arti time. I don't want to miss Arti, but he's not said Baba. So I know Baba liked to please the Mast. That I knew. So, okay, so then a light came on. And I thought, oh, thank God the light's on.
And then about 10 beats later, the light went off. And all of a sudden, he jumped off his bed and he started like, it sounded like growling, like a dinosaur from a dinosaur movie. You know, it was scary. And I jumped off my bench and I said, "What do you want, Mohammed? What do you want? Do you want Padre? Do you want Minu? What do you want?" And then I realized he was saying Baba's name the way he says it. He was saying da, 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 da. And I went, "Ah, Jai Baba." And I like the road runner, I was out of there lickety split. Anyway, it was quite an experience, a memorable experience. And really, just the grace of it, the beauty of being able to sing to him, beyond being afraid of him, because I thought I didn't know what a fifth plane was. You know, he might slap me or I don't know, you know, because he wasn't not always Jamali. And when I was leaving India that very year, I was leaving with this mild person. She never raised her voice, and she says, "Let's stop. I have a chocolate bar for Mohammed." And I said, "Okay." So we entered the hall. It was nighttime because we were leaving late, and she says, "Mohammed, I have chocolate for you." And he started growling and running at her, not me, but her. And Padre appeared. Like I tell you, Padre was in tune with Mohammed. Yeah, and he took her away. Mohammed didn't do anything to me, but yeah. Anyway, it was, that also was memorable. And just one last thing, because I had one other time, unless there's no time. I was on the back porch and Mohammed was playing in the water. It was daytime. And I was sitting on a bench and I was being playful with him, because I noticed like even Bao was playful with him, had a playful way. And I had bought him a little box, a little Indian box of candy cigarettes. And I handed it to him, and I was sitting on a bench and I had a long skirt on. And he took it and started squeezing it and grunting, you know. And then I said playfully, I went, "Well, if you don't want it, give it back." And I put my hands out, and it was the only time they ever touched me. He lowered my finger. No, he put the box between my legs on my long skirt, and then he lowered my, it's like the ring finger. It's like the fourth finger, the one by the pinky, on each hand, and then he went, and he could move really fast. He was gone. And I thought, oh, good, well, maybe he balanced me, because it was the same finger. And his skin was very soft. I do remember that. Kind of, yeah. I don't know how old he was then. Yeah, anyway, memorable times with him.
Thank you. Great stories. Betty, you have your hand raised?
I want to call your attention to this wonderful story. I'm just gonna, oopsie, do you see it? No, where'd it go? Darn, I don't know where it went. Anyway, I put the link. It's Eriko's story about Mohammed. Why is it not happening? Oh, okay. I can't. Okay. I put the link in here. It's Erico wrote it before Mohammed passed. It's written with such love. So I just urge you to be sure, and maybe I'll paste it again just to make it easy for you. About Mohammed, his whole life story, Erico's interactions with him. It's a great read, and so I don't know if I can share it now or not. No, okay, I'm not able to share it. So read it. I urge you to read it. It's written with great love and tenderness
Betty, I'll make it possible for you to share it. Why don't you
Let's-
share it? Yeah.
I'm not sure. Let's see. Okay, let me see if I. Okay, now let's try. All right, that's all. Just he's written it with such love and tenderness about this dear man that he cared so much for. Yeah.
You want to read it to us?
There is some little extra. Okay, let's read about how Mo. He talks about becoming a deva. After the wheels of memory had been greased a bit by several sessions of recollection, Erica went on. I asked him how he became a must, and the actual word that I used was deva. How did you become a deva? For the third plane above from which station Mohammed began his spiritual journey in this lifetime is the abode of devas, and he used to see them there. When I asked him this, Mo snapped his fingers as if to imply that it happened very quickly, just like that. I asked where he was at the time, and he told us that he was at home in his house. His wife and 2 children were sleeping. I asked him, what was the time of day? He answered, early in the morning. Having just woken from sleep, he stood up to tie on the red piece of cloth he used as underwear. When he finished tying on his underwear, he told us he became a deva. What did you do then? I asked him. Mo replied with animation, I put up my arms like this, and he raised both arms above his head. How long did you do that for? About 10 days, 2 weeks. And then what did you do? I put on my shoes and I went to Bombay. Why did you go to Bombay? I asked him. And Mo told me, these are his words in Marathi. I'm not going to be able to read that, which means there are many unkempt, respectable old men there. The literal sense of these words was easily enough understood, but it seemed that there was something more to be grasped than this. What made this answer especially confusing was that Mo uses the word bawaji to refer to old Parsi gentlemen. Why would the presence of old, unkempt, respectable Parsi gentlemen be something that would attract him to Bombay? Puzzling this over for a few days, suddenly I realized what Mo was saying. He was not talking about unkempt Parsis or unkempt old men in Bombay. What he meant was that there were plenty of Masts there. And when I asked him a question to that effect, later he gave answers that confirmed the interpretations. So Mohammed left his home and family and took up residence in Bombay. During this period, as William Donkin recorded, Mohammed was much pursued by number bidders who gambled on the day-to-day fluctuations of cotton prices, and who for this purpose would pester men perceived as spiritually advanced for profitable tips. It goes on how he kind of made a living for, anyway, find it and read it. It's a great story, great, well written. So are we at the end of our time, or do we have another half hour? Oh.
We have a little time.
Aha. Should I continue? Does somebody else have something?
Maybe if someone has a story, or if Reshta would like to share that video. I think it is a good video.
It's over an hour though.
Yeah, we won't be able to watch the whole thing because another program starts in an hour. But we can.
Let's see part of it. Let's see part of it.
Part of it. That would be good.
If you're amenable.
But I like hearing Betty.
Oh, Betty is just wonderful to listen to.
Well, yeah, you should definitely read the story. I mean, Erico's love for him's come through so strongly. He's got, let me see if I can find what he, it was about what a dear old man, it's like, he was like he was a baby. Let's see. Oh, I have another bit I could read. So, um, So now today, says Erica, we have a delightful Nana Bao, little brother, sitting in his chair on the back veranda of a 1948 bungalow at Lower Maribad. He doesn't appear to be doing much. When I ask him casually, what are you doing? He'll sometimes reply, Danda Chalu, which means, I am practicing my profession. This narration completed. Oh, Erico, now who's he? And I paid a visit to the grand old man himself, who was seated in his chair in the back veranda near the door to Mandali Hall. After the appropriate, I think it must be introductions, Erico asks him, in Marathi, of course, do you hear Dada's voice? Mohammed answers in the affirmative. What does Dada's voice sound like? In reply, Mohammed made a sound something like hu or hun, as one would say, as if one were to nasalize hu, the Islamic name for God. As a wali of the fifth plane, of course, Mohammed has attained to a station where he can actually hear the word of God, the primal sound, the nada Brahmin that upholds and sustains creation. Does he hear Dada's voice all the time? I hear it in the morning, Mohammed replied. Do you hear it at night also? No. And on this voice, our conversation came to a close.
Yeah, I mean, it's like everybody else. I don't know anything. I don't know that language, Marathi.
Yeah. Anybody else?
But I did hear about names of some fruits. There is something called chiku. I don't know what is that, the equivalent in English.
Yeah.
But then you heard, I'm sure, strawberry and things like
Yeah,
that.
I heard the word strawberry. I'm like, okay, this is something.
It looks like he's trying to ask that lady as to
What kind of food?
what kind of foods he can give, which don't kind of come in his way in terms of his, yeah.
How sweet.
Did you say what year is this movie?
This was, Marwan Meta, in fact, and then I'll see if I can find the year.
Did anyone understand the Marathi here who's in attendance?
I do not understand Marathi fluently, but I do understand because I was born in India. So mainly the conversation was regarding the food and actually you saw those pieces of bread that he had brought and some fruit that he had brought, and he was asking her whether you are giving it to Muhammad or not, and she says, yeah, I have been giving it to him, especially the bread and the chiku and other stuff. And he was asking how about orange, etc. And she said, no, or not the orange, not that sour product. That was just the conversation, and he was kind of sort of thanking him for blessing his son because his son was to write a test, some exam. I do not know which exam was it, university or school or XYZ, but he was saying that thank you very much for blessing my son for his exam because my son, because of your blessing, he passed his exam. That was a conversation, and in return of his blessing, he was offering him that kind of offerings. So that was all the conversation.
Oh, very
Really.
sweet. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
In the description, they didn't even have that much detail. Provided more detail than they tried to translate some of it, but
yeah, yes.
That's sweet.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Well, very good. Thank you so much for coming to enjoy Mohammed the Mast and share some stories. Jimmy, do you have some stories yourself?
I was a resident of Mehrabad, so I lived there for 2 years in 1980, 1981. And many of them are still there. Like Ellen is there. When I was there, Peter Nordin was there, Peter Moot was there, Dr. Bob was there. Because that I lived there for about 2 years, my almost 2 years of my time I have spent with no one else but mainly with Mohammed. So all the time I was with Mohammed. I hardly used to go outside Mehrabad. Uh, he would call me. I would stand in front of him. He would hold my two hands and keep it holding and holding and holding and holding for God knows for how long. He would make me sit next to him for I do not know for how long. Many a times I lost the time that for how long I was there. Because I lived in Iran for so long, and I had during that time I had visited the United States. And I had bought a very expensive watch from United States because I was working as a project engineer, was earning quite a high salary, and because of that I could manage to visit United States at a very young age. I was, I think, at that time 27 years old. I'm talking about 40 years back, my story. And then he removed my watch from my hand and put it back into my pocket. And I said, well, fine and good. So I just went back. I used to live in room number 5 next to Peter Nordin and Peter Booth. So next time, so I went to my room and naturally I would put the watch back on my wrist. So now, so next time when I went back to see him, again he took that watch off my hand and put it into my pocket. And then I realized it seems like what he's giving me a message that I don't want you to wear a watch. So since that time, 1980, I stopped wearing the watch as of today while I'm speaking with you. So that was a conversation. My interaction with him was lots and lots and lots of exchange of worldly things, like he would give me the napkins. People would come to him. He used to like two things. One is the soap and another is the napkins. So people would leave napkins as an offering to him, and he used to collect the napkins. And when I go to him, he had given me bag full of napkins to me, and so many of those napkins were the used napkins. Means you know how you sneeze and then you did, and all those napkins. So he would give all those napkins, and I would bring to my home, and I collected them for a very long period. So that was my main interaction with him. If you know Merwan Mehta, who is now in US, his mom used to make what we used to call as to make it simple for you, the Indian cookies, because he used to live, we used to call it as a bhakra, Bhakra, bhakra. And Merwan's mom, she would make those bhakras and bring it to him. And best part of it that Mohammed would loved those bhakras a lot, wouldn't eat those bakra, and he would give away. After she goes away, Muhammad would call me, and whenever I would visit him, he would give all the bakras to me to eat. So, so I would take it to my room and eat all the bakras. So that was it. And he would give me oranges and stuff to eat. I know that Muhammad, normally a person who is on a fifth plane, when he wants to, I know based on the God speaks that normally before one of the duty of a person on a fifth plane and sixth plane is to bring one person, at least one person, to his level before he drops the body. And the way the people on the fifth and sixth and seventh plane, the Sadgurus, how they do that has been spoken in God's speak is either they, by touching you, by looking straight into your eyes, or by offering you a banana, or he may ask for a glass of water, which the saint, the wali or peer or Sadguru would drink and offer the rest to that person to drink. And I know Muhammad had done that to someone, and I know that was a fortunate person. If you want to know, that person was Dr. Dadi Kerawala, if you know Dadi Kerawala, who was living with Banu Masi. If you know Banu Masi's son. So he already passed away, but I know that he was the one. He told me that Muhammad called me, and Muhammad drank water, asked for a glass of water. He drank half of it, and then he offered me the half to drink. It means, I mean, it doesn't happen spontaneously, but once I asked Eraj, what happens if a saint or if a wali or a peer or a Sadguru does that? How long does it take for a person to reach to that level? Because I was just curious. And Eraj told me, well, anywhere between 3 to 5 lives, within 3 to 5 lives, he would be reaching to that level. I mean, it depends. It depends. Someone may reach to that level spontaneously right there and then too, if it is the wish and will of the wali or peer of a Sadguru. But in general, this is how it works. That's what I was told by Eraj. So he had given me those oranges. So before I left Mehrabad, I had planted, I dug a little bit behind my room and I planted those oranges, assuming that one day there might be a small tree or something. But I did not get a good chance to go back and see that, because it's now 40 years back story. So I do not know what has happened, whether a small shrub or a plant grew up over there or not. Because after leaving Mehrabad in 1981, I came to Canada and I lived in Canada for about 25 years. And then from after living in Canada for about 25 years, I applied for my immigration for my green card to United States. And I came to United States in 2014 after living there for about 25 years. So before I left Mehrabad, Muhammad all the napkins that he had given to me, he called me and he told me, okay, bring back all those napkins. So I gave him back all the napkins, and that was a very routine. He used to give it to so many people, and then he would ask back for that. But before I left Mehrabad, he called me and he told me, he gave me his kafni. You know what is a kafni? The white robe that he's wearing. So one of his white robe that he used to wear, he just folded it and he gave it to me to take it with me. So I carried that his kafni, his robe, all the time, wherever and whenever I go. So I do have that kafni, which I touch each and every day early in the morning when I wake up in the morning. So that was his gift to me. So it was very special, very touchy for me to have his piece of cloth that he has been wearing for all the time, which he gave it to me to keep it with me. And when I was very sick, I fell sick very badly during my stay at Mehrabad. And I was so sick that Padri used to come and visit me very often. Bauji used to come and visit me very often and ask me, how are you? What are you doing? How are you doing? Alan Wagner, who is still there, he used to come to my room with a bucket full of warm water and give me a sponge bath with the water. And then Mani said that he is getting, means me getting very weak physically. So they call me to Merazad because in Mehrabad you do not eat the type of food that you eat outside of Mehrabad. So in order for me to put on some weight and get well faster and sooner, so I lived in Merazad with the Merazad Mandli. I would sit with them as a member of a Mandli and sit with the entire Mandli on the same table with them and eat with them. And I lived there for about a month, and that was all. I was very highly blessed human being that I happened to not only live there, but I was constantly and continuously in touch with Muhammad and continuously in touch with the Merazad Manli. And then I think maybe I wasn't destined to be there. Normally what happens is that if you have certain karmas that you have to work out, and that's why I know that many Sadgurus have told their disciples, well, I know that you want to be with me, but you have to fulfill your certain duties in the worldly world. So go back and fulfill those duties. And I think that might be one of the reasons why I lived there only for 2 years, and then it was their desire that I live and leave Mehrabad and come to Canada and get married and have 3 kids and all that. So,
can I say something for a couple of minutes?
Dinesh,
sure.
please go ahead.
I remember about Mr. A.K. Hajra. I have not seen Mohammed Mast. I came to Meher Baba in 2007. But once A.K. Hajra's assistant, Mr. Tekam, met me in Mehrajad. So he was narrating one story that every day Mr. A.K. Hajra will tell him to wish him Jai Baba or Salam while passing through Mohammed Mast. And one day he was going, passing through there, and one big dog was standing there. That is early morning he used to pass. So big dog was standing there, so he could not wish, and he narrated this to A.K. Hajra that today I could not convey your Jai Baba to Mohammed Mast. Then A.K. Hajra told him that from wherever you are standing, you could have conveyed there itself without going near to him, and it would have been received by him.
That's true.
That's true. He's fifth plane. You don't need to be right next to him, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So he said that from there itself you can convey, it would have reached him.
Yeah. Oh, Mohammed is quite special.
That's special. True. That's true. Does
My
anyone
video is
know?
not working.
Hmm.
Do you know what time of the day or night he dropped his body? Does anyone know? No. No.
I don't personally know, but I imagine that we could find out.
Yeah, I wanted to know. I was curious.
Yeah, yeah.
I was curious. Yeah. Okay.
All
Jai
right.
Baba.
I'm
Jai
emailing
Baba.
Krishna, so
Yeah.
we'll speak again. Thank you, Dinesh. That's a great story.
That's
Yeah.
right. Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Oh.
Wow.